Insights Dildo.
Call of Juarez was a series of games that I unfortunately didn't grow up with. Without diving too deep into my childhood memories again, I used to play games like Oddworld, GTA, Doom 3, Time Splitters, and some of the older Call of Duty titles, but I never really noticed the Call of Juarez games until I was much older. I don't know anything about the story, or anything, considering I haven't ever played them, nor have I seen the gameplay. I know that it's a popular franchise with plenty of classic games that are discussed a lot when fans talk about good first-person shooters. I want to say it revolutionized the idea of combining hardcore action and the Wild West. Think Doom, but if it crossed paths with Red Dead Redemption. That's a badass recipe for a great time in my opinion, and I regret that I'm only just now getting into the series in general. I've maybe seen someone play Call of Juarez the Cartel at some point, but without any personal experience I can't comment on it. Today, I can comment on one of the entries of the series that I found to be a pretty satisfying yet impactful first-person shooter with that classic PlayStation 2 style and feel. Lo and behold, I present to you Call of Juarez, the Gunslinger. Seeing as how this will be my very first Juarez game, I hope you don't mind that I judge it entirely on its own merit, so consider this a bias-free review of a great Western classic that still kicks ass and rattles bones today, with some flaws in between. Right off the bat, I'm gonna hit you with the facts. It's a pretty addictive game. The action elements implemented here are highly satisfying to watch and experience. The gunplay is really cool. The game has somewhat of a cell shade to it. It reminds me of Borderlands minus the open world. The sound design is great. Every weapon sounds like a powerful tool pulsating through your eardrums like a bottle rocket, especially when you use the dual-wield revolvers. It's a really kick-ass game that will probably create a newfound appeal for the Western genre of video games. Hell, this is one of my guilty pleasures, I'd say. With the right amount of time on my side, I've never been more excited to talk about a Western title that deserves a lot of praise for being a fun little comic book / action shooter. I get hungry for a game like this every so often. I wonder what's for dinner. I first noted how creative the cutscenes were. By today's standards, I'd probably think this was a lazy approach for a AAA title, but since this game is more known in the indie communities where it's discussed, I can both forgive and appreciate the art direction with the storytelling. You play as Silas Greaves, an old bounty hunter who happens to walk into the right bar at the right time. The folks all around recognize your name and beg to hear stories from the outlaw's past, starting off strongly with an introduction that can't be forgotten.
First man I hunted was back when I was riding with Billy the Kid.
You knew Billy the Kid?
Damn right. That scrawny son of a bitch had no fear. Wouldn't back down for nobody.
I heard he collected the 10 stars off any crooked lawman who crossed him.
It was a war, boy. The Lincoln County War.
It goes without saying that the voice acting is well defined. I enjoy hearing Silas talk over the gameplay at certain segments.
Many would have fled in my place. But I had that false sense of invincibility that many young men have. Like Jack here.
What are you saying, old man?
As the story is being told, we as the player are experiencing it along the way. Sometimes Silas makes a mistake with the story and you'll have to go back and redo a segment all because he messed up the details. A clever and unique way of designing a game that I hadn't yet seen before.
Wait, I'm jumping the gun here. Let me back up and give you some background on this sumbitch. He deserves that much. Don't you think so, Ben?
And that you killed him in a fair fight.
Is that what that Penny Dreadful said? No, boy. That ain't what I meant when I said I met Pat Garrett. So let me start again. I finally reached those damn stables.
It is a first-person shooter, so your main objective will be wiping out every and all enemies that come into contact with you. Thankfully, the developers of this gem were Techland, who have mastered game design in the past with previous titles. I knew going into it that it would be a solid experience, but I was shocked at just how fun it really was. As you progress, you can carefully examine the environment around you for something the game calls nuggets of truth. Basically, it's just a bunch of collectible trivia that you can read at any time in the main menu, and it goes over a lot of supposed real events leading up to the deaths of some great Western icons. The first major example being Billy the Kid. Collecting these doesn't do much other than unlocking an achievement and giving you bragging rights to the time you spent finding all of the papers. I was also surprised to discover there's a focus mechanic. Much like the Deadeye in Red Dead Redemption, your focus meter assists you with making more accurate shots and combos to increase your overall score. Killing enemies will refill the meter on its own, but it does drain rather quickly. Multiple branches of Silas's skills and abilities can be upgraded as long as you know what you're doing. Once you're able to, you can dual-wield revolvers and really bring the chaos to the fucking Wild West. Sitting here and playing it for the first time makes me feel as though I'm playing one of the greatest westerns created. Not only are you going through the early years of the death of the Wild West, but you're engaging directly with such iconic characters from history that contribute directly to the outcome for the main character. It's got a good narrative, great voice lines, fun action, and beautiful graphics. And I hate to shit in your cereal now, but I kinda want to get the negative complaints out of the way as fast as possible. There's a lot of great things within the Gunslinger that I'll continue to talk about, but it's hard to point them out without also talking about the obvious flaws, so let's just rip the band-aid off. You aren't able to dual-wield weapons until you upgrade it in the skill tree. This is a very minor complaint, mainly because of how easy it is to not only get an upgrade point, but also to unlock dual wielding. It's one of the first skills you can get off the bat, but it's the fact that it feels a bit tacked on, as if last minute someone decided it needed to cost something and not come equipped with the character's natural abilities. I mean, you only have 2 fucking hands, right? Why would you use 2 guns? Also, there isn't much gore. Maybe I've been playing too much Red Dead Redemption through Xenia, but the headshots appear as these bloody, brutal masses only to fade away and disappoint you with the character models appearing as lifeless as ever. How come there aren't any brutal gunshot wounds or gore effects? I'm not a disgusting sadist or anything, but I like my violence in video games to be less cartoonish. I understand this was probably the intended style. After all, if you make a game too violent, suddenly it becomes a problem to society. This game was released in 2013, so that tells me it didn't really have to have all that overblown blood shit anyway. I'm just saying a mod or something would be kind of cool to witness. There's a unique mechanic involving duels, mostly with boss type characters. When it comes time, you'll have to carefully prep yourself for a showdown with another opponent, timing your moves as best you can to be the quickest hand. If you keep a level head, you'll be able to kill your attacker with ease.
Sorry I had to ruin the legend for you, boy. But the legend ain't always true.
Fuck up just once though, and you're dead meat. It takes a lot of mental focus when dueling, and I'd argue that it's probably done much more justice here than in Red Dead. While your eyes are scanning your enemy, they're also checking Silas's hand every now and again to make sure the percentages are right. It can be nerve-wracking sometimes. There are other guns you get to use, such as a powerful double-barreled shotgun and a lever action, to name a few. Enemies will usually drop ammunition as you gun them down, typical shooter stuff you'd expect. It's the aesthetic that really sells it and makes it a genuinely addictive and fun game. I enjoy learning about the various outlaws and important gunslingers throughout the history of the Wild West's early days, and going after some like Butch Cassidy, Jesse James, etc. It's pretty thrilling. However, there are still quite a few things wrong with the game that I found a bit hard to ignore. Although this is an underrated title, you all know it wouldn't be fair to water some of the grass without covering the dry patches. Let's continue on with some of the complaints. It has lots of great moments where you enter a flow state, you begin to enjoy it enough to invest yourself properly, until you realize that every enemy in the game shoots bullets like a fucking laser. Look at this, I'm getting hit from fucking everywhere and I can barely see the enemies. It's like I'm a gopher getting whacked in the fucking head. The environment is great looking for the most part, but it mostly serves as an obstacle. You'll have to constantly crouch up and down over and over again to avoid gunfire. You'll have to jump up and down to get off of a fucking tiny stick that you get stuck on, and sometimes it isn't always clear where you can go. Look, why can't I get up this step? I'm jumping directly into it and Silas Greaves just bounces off it like a rubber ball. It's like 2 feet, just get the fuck up there. Ugh, God, finally. Sometimes you could be searching for a nugget of truth only to take a direct path to death itself. I unlocked a cool skill that hints whenever I'm close to one of the damn things, but I got a little too in over my head. I found a hidden path in these broken boards, only to fall to my death countless times. What the fuck, is this not the way to go for the secret? It looks like it is, why else would it be like that? Oh, for fuck's sake, how the hell was I supposed to know it was above my head? Even though it can be pretty cool to get into a one-on-one standoff with the world's toughest outlaws, it's pretty fucking repetitive. How many times do they force the player to enter a duel against someone? At first, I thought I understood how the mechanics worked, but using the mouse and keyboard kept getting me killed before I could do anything. I had to plug my controller in, which was the only way I could get past any of these tougher duels. I really like how all of the levels feel inspired by the landscapes of the Western Age. The swamp is a cool place to look at, but you'll start to notice a reoccurring theme where you begin in a forest or a woodsy area, you run ahead and kill the same bad guys over and over, and you just wait until Silas Greaves continues his narration. The story was really hard to pay attention to. At certain segments, the difficulty's amped up to the 10th degree, making it hard to focus on the dialogue and subtitles going on in the background of the gameplay. Like, what the fuck? Do you think you could wait to continue talking until after all of the enemies are dead? It's sensory overload, and a lot of times it's just straight up unfair. If you're not paying attention in the closest regard, you're gonna die a lot. I mentioned before how I like the style of the storytelling, and that is true, but in my opinion it can slow down the narrative a lot. It seems every single time I get immersed in a battle with some outlaws, the game interrupts itself with a slow motion cutscene and changes direction altogether. One of those moments that's like, oh, I'm just now feeling the fun and the flow, and then it gets taken away. It's different, it's neat, but doing it so often is kind of a slap in the balls. I want to gun people down. I want to get into the lawless bloodshed that defined the Wild West of the early 1900s. Well, there are definitely a lot of cool set pieces to make up for the dullness and the cracks. This is one of those games where you can basically expect a turret segment, but it's not all that bad. You can unload a rain of bullets onto your enemies with no remorse, building up your combo to a higher level and achieving ungodly numbers. The more you upgrade your abilities and gear, the better you perform in general. Your weapons will gain a fancy new skin with your newly attained skill set, allowing you to do cool things like reload faster by smashing the R key. I really like the flow of the controller support. It feels less clunky than the keyboard and mouse. Granted, this game was probably developed for console originally, so it only makes sense to plug in the fucking thing and play it. Forgive me, I know I've been jumping back and forth during this review because the game offers a pretty good experience for the most part, and I do certainly consider it an underrated gem, but it can be a bit boring if you play it too long. The missions that take place on foot are okay, but it's most of the same formula. Run and hide behind cover, kill the first wave of goons, find the fucking sniper that's been killing you 4 times in a row, and proceed with the game. This is also one of those games where fall damage should be taken extremely seriously. If you fall so much as 7 feet, Silas Greaves dies in pathetic fashion. Sometimes if you miss a jump, you're dead before you even blink. Like, what the fuck? What killed me? A blanket of air? I get that it would have been a death either way due to fall damage, but did they have to stop me in midair and choke me out like a fucking helpless animal? Sometimes I feel like the hit detection is off. Not that big of a deal really, but it felt at times I shouldn't have missed certain shots. I started going through a strange pattern of behavior while playing the Gunslinger, and I'm not sure if anyone else can relate to it. I'll try to explain. I got so used to the poor ADS mechanics that I'd start doing great, nailing headshot after headshot, earning a pretty decent score on the board for accuracy, but then suddenly there would be parts where I sucked ass and couldn't land a single one of my shots. I got so embarrassed once, I emptied an entire chamber into this fucking cockhole and he dodged every one of the bullets. I was so upset, I just reset the checkpoint and did better the next time. Hey, fuck it, sometimes you need a redo. This pattern would continue, however, as the game's difficulty seemed to fluctuate between being easy as pie and hard as black fucking ice. It'd be easier to watch Terrifier 3 without puking than to hit your marks in this game. Fucking assholes, stop running around me so much. Jesus Christ, why? Why is it so hard? Or maybe I'm a fucking idiot, I don't know. It's a fun action shooter with lots of perks to it, and it contains a really interesting narrative, but it does get a bit tedious having to relive the same segments one right after the other. Duel after duel, firefight after firefight, story blemish after story blemish. All of this aside, I really do enjoy it. I enjoy dual-wielding revolvers. Honestly, the revolvers were the best part of the game for me. It seemed often I would take the Ranger as my trusted big iron. It's so powerful and accurate, like a mini rifle. Sadly, none of the primary weapons interested me. You get a rifle and a shotgun, both with sawn-off variations, and really that's about it. Still, they're worth upgrading for the sake of playing through the game on a second run. Yes, there's a feature that allows you to play a new game plus. Games with this feature are always worth revisiting, whether you're trying to unlock all the skill points, find all the golden nuggets, achievement hunt, or just enjoy it. I totally get why, and I agree with you that it's a fun little game. I only wish it had a bit more to offer within the gameplay itself, but it's nothing I hold with ill intent. I get why this game is popular and why a lot of people enjoy it. It's addicting when you reach that flow state of destruction and when you can manage to make out the narrations. Silas Greaves is a legendary character that I'm happy I got to play as, and for the first Call of Juarez game I've ever played, it was alright. The combat's the highlight of the whole thing, but everything in between works as well. The gunplay is pretty neat with the focus mechanic, literally dodging a bullet to save your own life just to headshot the guy right after, sending someone to fucking Jupiter with a shotgun. All that stuff is super cool. I'd recommend you try it out yourself, and give Call of Juarez the Gunslinger a chance. I appreciate you all for watching this review. Hopefully I'll see you guys next time.